All right. Hello, everybody. We've had another tiny little delay between, I guess, episode 44, which 4 is death. And now here's episode 45 of the SPNatI Sleepy Cast. We need to hurry up because some of us need to leave, some of us need to fall asleep.
Oh man, I'm cranky.
I'm just kind of chilling here. I'm your host, SPNanon of the SPNatI Podcast. And here's my co-host.
I'm your co-host, Masp. It's a pleasure as always to be on.
No more NyQuil spam, please.
No more NyQuil. Yeah, geez. Yeah, today we're going to be talking a lot about what it means to progress and complete a character, as well as beginnings and endings in SPNatI. What does it mean to start a character? How does that character grow? And when can you really decide on having them be finished? To facilitate us, we've gotten some really great guests on tonight. We have Cavendish and also Mr. Solitaire, our loyal editor. I'll let them introduce themselves. Cavendish, you go first.
Hello, my name is Mohammed bin Salman, but I post under the name Cavendish89. I am the adopter of Pyrrha Nikos from Ruby. I do the writing for her specifically. And
is that a meme, or did you literally just drop your full actual name?
No, it's Mohammed bin Salman's the guy that got assassinated. Or already
He's still alive. He's the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. You're ruining my joke.
I'm thinking of a different Mohammed bin Salman. Never mind. All right.
I don't fucking know.
And I also am the writer for a character who recently hit the testing table that I'm sure you'll be familiar with, and we'll be discussing later.
Yeah, Pyrrha. From Ruby.
Here, the forbidden waifu. Yeah.
Who'd you think we were talking about?
All right, and Solitaire.
If you've been following the podcast at all, you're already familiar with me. I am Mr. Solitaire. I create Toyosatsu Mimi no Miko and Saki Mikaido.
You can tell he's a Toho fan because he just nailed that pronunciation.
And now I am the omnipresent and all-powerful editor of the podcast. Basically, being the editor, I'm akin to God. It is by my whims whether these men sound like erudite individuals or gibbering buffoons, or if they're even heard at all. I will, of course, take care to make myself sound the best out of all of us. And other than that, I'm currently working on Reimu Hakurai from Toho Project.
And I expect nothing less. All right, so
it's a little unfair that he gets to both edit the video and appear on it. He gets to double dip on shitposting. Most of us don't get that opportunity.
Hey, that just means less material for him to make jokes out of, because he's not going to joke about himself.
Yeah.
It's I think it's pretty much this. Sorry, I'm going to link something in chat real quick. It's basically Solitaire being on the podcast is the SPNatI equivalent of this image.
Yeah.
But anyway, so before we go into our topics for the evening, we do have some characters that have recently hit test or the main roster, and we'll engage with that appropriately. So the first is Korra from The Legend of Korra, the spin-off series from Avatar: Last Airbender, has recently rejoined the testing tables. Korra has a long history in SPNatI. She was one of the very first characters, I actually believe, but was also one of the first to be culled in the before times where we didn't have infinite space by virtue of me throwing money at it. So,
I think she was there for a while.
Was she? I thought she was
I think she died. She got culled.
She had 500 lines. She had 500 lines, so she was actually one of the first ones.
So that was a lot back in the day. I think she got culled at the end of 2018. I think Ryuko killed her.
Oh.
She was there for a while. I remember she was one of the poster girls from the beginning of 2018, that very first ACO thread that I made. There were threads before that, but that was the first one I made, and she was one of the poster girls.
Very cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Korra. So Cavendish, why don't you go ahead and start? How did you've of course tested Korra, like we all do? What do you think of the new revamp? Did you ever play the original?
I did, in fact, play the original, but she wasn't really that memorable, I don't think. Because back in the old days, before I even joined the dev server, I did play against a lot of the older characters on various other sites. And, there's a reason why they were culled. They weren't really that interesting.
None of the old characters were really individually memorable. They were all kind of samey. It was mostly just people found the game itself kind of novel.
Yeah, that was it. It was mainly the appeal of like, well, the Kizuke model looks like it's the character, so close enough, I guess. And usually they would name drop a few things from their source or something like that, and maybe vaguely act like their personality.
Yeah, that's all we expected back in the day.
But as for the new version, the art is definitely better. Though I think it probably could use some shading and shine for the hair. As the trend is currently, I think custom breasts and the hip bone lines would probably also be good. Her arms could be a bit thicker because I'm fairly sure she's fairly muscular. And also, I believe someone pointed out that the excited pose that she has looks a little strange. I don't know if someone can post that in the channel, or edit it in.
I have all this stuff prepared ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. Her face looks.
Oh, sure. Just steal my thunder.
Her expression's a little odd. So I was thinking either you could adjust it to make it like look a little more, tone it down a bit, or just fully embrace the cartooniness and like put sparkles around her face. I don't know. I'm not an art. There's a reason I'm not an artist.
It's currently in a little bit of an awkward middle ground, I think, between like trying to be really expressive and cartoony, but it still feels constrained by the medium.
Well, I haven't actually seen Legend of Korra, but I'm fairly sure that's where I've seen stills of Korra. She's a pretty expressive character, so you probably want to lead into the expressiveness.
Yeah,
but like this pose is not as exaggerated as the source material. You know, her face shape doesn't really deform at all. So I think that's what kind of leads it to being a little uncanny. As
for dialogue, she does make some appropriate references to her source, which is, you like to see, and it doesn't seem too shoved in. But I think her main issue right now is that a lot of her lines have the classic issue of pretty much, there's a lot of characters who could say this. And also she tends to talk about the game a bit too much. Also, I've noticed just looking through her behavior.xml through the character editor, a lot of the lines that are for accessories and minor items are focusing on the thing that the person's taking off. Generally, you just want to use those as an excuse to talk about your character or do exposition lines that sort of flesh out their personality. Talking about someone taking off their socks is not interesting at all.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's about all I have to say about Korra.
So yeah, I agree with most of what Cav said. So I think her model itself is good. I haven't seen The Legend of Korra either, but just sort of looking from some of the stills, I don't think the original has much in terms of like hair shine or any sort of significant body detail. So I think the model itself is fine. I think the problem with the posing is that the posing itself is kind of stiff. So if you look at the excited pose that I just posted, you see it's pretty straight up and down. It's fairly symmetrical.
That's true.
So the pose itself is stiff, while the facial expressions, I feel they're over the top without being properly cartoonish. And because of that, the two just don't really mesh well. You have the over-exaggerated facial expressions with the posing that's kind of stiff. But I actually did a lot of this with Saki. She's got a lot of very cartoony facial expressions. And so a lot of what I found, so for Saki, often I would rotate the mouth a lot and then sort of rotate the entire head to kind of compensate for that. Another thing is that in a lot of Korra's posing, the eyes sort of seem to be the same amount of open in every pose. Like in the excited pose I posted, her eyes aren't super wide. And again, something I found with posing Saki is that you want to have the eyes every bit as exaggerated as the mouth. So if your mouth is open huge, you want your eyes either open huge or shut very narrowly. to really sort of give that cartoony dynamic to it. So I think right now you've got, some parts of cartoon expression, but you don't really have the whole thing working together. And then in terms of dialogue, I agree. Again, she suffers from talk about what's in front of me-itis. And so I don't really get to know that character that well. Like,
we need a better name for that syndrome.
Yeah.
I don't know, like literalism, like stating the obvious.
If you are listening to this cast, reply in the comments what you think we should call this phenomenon.
Yeah, so I feel like what I guess Blue Coin wants to do is just sort of think about, for dialogue, like, what does she like? What are her goals? Or like, what's her niche? Like, I think she's supposedly a tomboy, but I don't really feel like she does or says much on that front. And I don't really know anything more about her before playing the game than after. And then another sort of minor thing I noticed was that when she lets her hair down, I think when she gets naked, like, I think the transition for that is kind of abrupt. It's just like she has her hair all done and then suddenly it's all down. So I think that specific transition could be worked on as well. But that's everything I've got for Korra.
Yeah, I think really great feedback so far. For me, I remember Korra from the original version, and I have watched Legend of Korra quite extensively, though it's admittedly been a few years. I think that the new art is a really big step in the right direction. I think my biggest feedback would be, again, lean more into the cartooniness of it and definitely bulk out her arms. I think those two things are really, really quite something for Korra's character. As far as dialogue goes, I think this was a great way for Bluecoin to put a character on test to get more feedback for what's going on artistically, and I'm sure he'll expand with more targeted lines in time. Just because I think right now most, if not all, of her dialogues, a few lines here and there, are from the original version, and I definitely think there's room for expansion there. I think Ardris was the original writer of Korra, and his primary complaint was that it's really hard to get into Korra's voice. And I can really see that, but it would be interesting to see where Bluecoin takes it once he has a chance to really, nail down that model change and continue to develop her dialogue and targeted lines. It would be really interesting to see where she goes with that. And something else that's really nice about Korra is that she's from a show with like a lot of dynamism and activity, but she doesn't need that to stand out as a character. Like, not every character needs like a super advanced gimmick. And in a way, it's kind of refreshing that she's not like bending away her clothes or something, like that. That's kind of nice. And that's all.
Her posing could be like a little more kind of sort of kung fu, off balance, more dynamic, and she look, just glancing at her poses, she does just kind of stand up straight a lot. Not too much in the way of like off balance stuff.
Like Amy's bending forward pose, you mean?
No, just just bending to the side, just normal shifting your weight that you see in SPNatI poses. She's very upright.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, her legs are mostly, maybe not quite symmetrical, but almost.
Yeah, like maybe have her sort of bouncing around more, shifting her weight around.
Just kind of striking a pose. Her posing is very kind of subdued right now. Is it my turn? Should I keep going?
Yeah, it's your turn. Yeah, that's your call.
I kind of interjected on the mask there.
No, I was done. You.
Okay, well, let me just start off by saying, I guess we're all weebs here. I haven't seen Legend of Korra either.
God damn it. Am I the only, Westaboo over here?
Yes.
Fuck.
Are you not aware of this by now? I mean,
in my defense, I wanted to watch it when I was a kid and it was first airing, but I missed a whole bunch of episodes. And then
How old were you when it was first airing?
I don't know when it came out.
It was I was in grad school when it came out.
How old are you, dude?
I was in college.
Oh my god.
And I was probably in middle school.
I think it was
oh my god.
2011 or something. I remember I was in college.
When I was in high school.
It was like in 2011, 2012, something like that.
Okay, I was in high school.
Oh, sorry, I meant Avatar: The Last Airbender. That was first airing when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Well, okay, because I was gonna be like, all right, get the party van out.
Even Avatar might be a little too like might have been too old for that.
So good. Anyway,
I'm sure I'm sure an adult could still enjoy it, but I mean it is honorary anime. The thing is, okay, let's start off with the main thing here. I'm looking at this reference art that Solitaire posted, and she's got quite a lot of junk in the trunk, and I'm not seeing a butt pose anywhere in these files. So what's up with that? First of all,
Now we're talking.
not everything needs a butt pose.
yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
A butt like that does.
It's the year of our Lord 2020. Everyone needs a butt pose.
Yeah,
If
but
if any girl needs to show off her toned bending ass, then let's make that happen. Air bending, water bending, it all works out the gluteus maximus.
Yeah, she is kind of built like a dump truck. So I'm.
All right,
I'd say yeah, go for it.
Getting kind of freaky with it.
I guess I said junk in the trunk, so I wasn't really being any more flattering.
That would be like a nice like sponsorship thing. Like, yeah, give her a butt pose. So I don't know. That's my
Give her multiple.
Why would you? Okay. For what? For her? Well, this is like her firebending ass, and this is her airbending. Okay, Shiva was a failed experiment. We don't need to revisit that.
No. Shiva was the girl who got spanked.
Was she?
Yeah, they came out around the same time. Uhura was the one that farted.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Two different, possibly racially insensitive characters back to back that were weirdly fetishized.
It's tough.
SPNatI lore.
It's tough to be a woman of color in SPNatI lore. I guess Korra is though, and she got cold. Oh God, this is not a good look for us.
We've got May.
I mean, it's definitely okay. This is a quality ad. I mean, Korra is like a big Rule 34 character in general, like a good Western character. You'd see her on Eiko. So that's definitely a character that's worth having around. I've noticed an increasing uptick in like people complaining that there aren't enough Western characters. Which
on Eiko, that's a big.
It's fair. I mean,
make them.
It's been like
lazy.
It's been like 3 solid years of mostly Japanese characters, so you start to see the effects there. I understand. At the same time, though,
you just gotta get people to make them. You know,
it's kind of like, you know, I have pretty much a thread on Eiko all the time, so it doesn't reflect well on them that they haven't managed to produce like any Western characters for the game. You know, it's like
there's definitely room. There's definitely room for it. There's like a lot of good content out there. I assume. I don't really watch TV anymore.
It's like, what do you expect to say if it's? I mean, if weebs are weebs are the only ones who are making anything, so that's what's going to happen. Like, what do you expect? Like, none of us are getting paid to do this. What do you want?
I also like, just unrelated, like something I really liked. I think like there's also a very big visual distinction between someone who's like clearly a hentai artist versus someone who's like drawing like comic book porn, and that like the hentai stuff just all looks so much better than like a lot of like the hyper realistic, you know, titium kind of stuff. Everyone's favorite element, titium.
I mean, it can look good. Hentai does like look kind of samey. But there's also a much greater chance that Western is going to be fucking awful.
Yeah.
It's going to have an awful art style. It doesn't have to. Some of it's really good. But you also get like really grotesque stuff.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the big mouth R34 stuff. And then I'll stab my eyes out.
Okay.
So well, let me make a couple other comments.
Yeah. No. I know. I'm just saying, like, keep going.
People have talked about, okay, so she doesn't really have hair shine like an anime character does, but she does have some shading, like some darker parts on her hair, which aren't present on this model, so that would help kind of give it some depth. Like just some darker shadows, sort of like where there's folds in her hair. Right now it's just kind of a line. And right now maybe smooth it out a little bit. I kind of see what he's going for, but it almost looks blocky, maybe because it looks flat. But, you know, it's definitely a huge improvement over the previous model. It doesn't look all defaulty. It's got better proportions.
I think it's a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Just like to kind of reiterating what you're saying.
The thing with her eyes, I feel like her pupils or like her irises are a little too big. I don't know. She seems like a little too girly. I don't know how girly she is in the show. I thought she was supposed to be a tomboy.
She is, but you can kind of have your cake and eat it too.
Looking at this reference art, like her irises seem a little bit smaller, and her eyes, like the top line of her eyes, is not so curved. It's more the tsurime, the sort of like the stark, pointing forward, very determined looking character. You know what I mean? As opposed to like the moe character, and right now she looks a little too moe.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's specific.
She doesn't have the look of like I'm a fighter, because her eyes just don't have that proper shape. Here, I'll post the TV tropes so people can understand what the fuck I'm talking about. It's she needs that sort of flatter top line of her eyes, sort of give that determined look. I mean, a lot of male characters have it, but you can see she's got a little bit more of that going on, which I'm not seeing here, which might be why it looks a little uncanny. She just looks kind of girly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point with regards to the eyes.
It's subtle. She's almost there, but it's just enough that it's a little off. Dialogue wise, I don't know a whole lot about her, but in terms of like, the whole, are we going to call it literalism thing, stating the obvious, talking about the game a lot. I mean, I've been a big proponent of it. I've been telling people to do that. I know Bluecoin's kind of gone on record as saying he doesn't really like that school of thought. He'd rather have them talk about the game, which can work, but I think it's a lot harder to make it work. I think he said it just feels like they're not paying attention. But to me, it's like, why would you pay attention to them taking off their socks?
I think there's merits to both sides of that conversation. I never quite know where I land. Well, I mean, I know where I personally write. I talk more about characters than I do about the game, but for me, it depends on, like, if you're here to play like strip poker, you do want some characters that really focus on the game state. And if you're here for the waifu simulator, you don't really care about that. So I think there's validity to it. At the same time, it's like you can have both. It's not an either or. It's just, I think the best version of this is the masterful combination of both. Anyway,
I mean, you shouldn't be like talking about completely unrelated shit when someone's getting their tits out, because then you seem like you're not paying attention, or that you're just completely asexual. But early on, it's like, who cares? Why would they make such a big deal out of it? That's my take anyway. Like, you can start to focus in more when they've sort of like already introduced themselves and more interesting things are happening.
Yeah, I agree with that.
For the love of God, I feel like we really need to get away from this idea of like characters announcing what hand they have. I don't know how this became such a common thing. Like,
in what way?
Literally, the one thing you do not do in poker is just announce how good your fucking hand is.
That's a concession to the gameplay, though. Like, I that doesn't bother me, because honestly, you're not here to pay super close attention. Like, this isn't LA Noire. You're not here to like read someone's tells. And if you are, I'm sorry. This is not the right game for you. Be a good little boy somewhere else.
I think it's just it's the complete lack of subtlety that I see. I know it's not supposed to be LA Noire, but it's still like, you could just be like, they could talk about something unrelated, but if it's generally something negative, if they're in a bad mood, you could be like, oh, they have a bad hand. It doesn't have to be like completely unrelated to the mood. But for them to just go, oh, this hand is bad, it's like, why the fuck would you say that?
I think the main issue is, one, it's an anti-frustration feature, so you can sort of have an indication of how bold of a trade you need to make based on how. I guess
so.
The other thing is that
that's incredibly minor, though.
Since there's no betting, what's the point in hiding what kind of hand you have?
I get that, which is why it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, my main point here is that she should have a big old butt pose. Because look at that thing. It's showing through like a parka.
Like a dump truck.
Wrapped around her waist.
Like a cement mixer.
She's got some padding for the winter.
Like a well cemented mailbox.
Apparently she's a lesbian. Is she a lesbian, or is that like an actual thing they did in a kids show?
She's like bisexual. Anyway, I can
Nice.
I will bitch about that. It's just hold on. I will bitch about that topic.
She better be playing that up in the game.
Well, let's get there like in the Backmatter, but I think like
I know
we
there's
do have
some,
other
I know there's
topics
some
to
girl
cover.
like Asami or something like that she is shipped with. I don't know if they're like officially an item.
It's a canon thing. Spoilers, sorry.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like, I don't know. That woman kind of looks like she's older than her.
All right. So
I don't know shit about Korra.
I'm gonna pull the lever on this, and let's move to the one, the only, the next character on testing, Cavendish.
Amy Doki
Yeah,
Doki.
Amy, the fifth Doki, Amy.
Amy too.
All right. Cavendish. Cavendish made Yuri Doki Doki. Why don't you give us the 411 about your character, man?
Just for some context, in case this is your first SPNatI podcast ever, Monica, Natsuki, and Sayori from Doki Doki Literature Club came to this game like 2 years ago.
2018? Yeah.
Yeah, 2018.
Late 2018.
I joined because of Monica.
And we got our fourth Doki last year around Christmas.
Yes, Amy.
Yeah.
And now we have this fan character called Yuri. Because, apparently we don't have enough fucking franchise bloat of Doki Doki. They got to start putting in their fucking OCs. So, Cavendish, why did you make your Doki Doki Literature Club OC and put it in the game?
Well, what started was that one day someone posted yet another Where's Yuri post on the subreddit. And then Thursdays just said, all right, I'll do the posings as long as someone writes for her. I said, all right, I've been thinking of writing her anyway. I'll do it.
Keep in mind that like 3 projects to make Yuri had already failed.
Well, I'm the chosen one, so.
Yeah, I straight up forgot that this was like I assumed that Yuri would never be made and it was this cursed character. But I will boil that pizza. Don't worry. So I made a.
Are you going to do it live?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'm not going to do it on this podcast.
Right,
I'm not going to do it
now?
on this podcast, but I will make a YouTube recording of it. I just need to like. You'll get the full experience. Trust me. It's just kind of nothing but regret at this stage.
I have some pizza in my fridge.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know. Like I have to like think about it because I'm not going to waste good pizza, right? Like I'm not going to go spend $30 on a pizza and then just like. Yeet.
You get to buy the shittiest pizza in your neighborhood.
I'm not gonna like yeet that fucking pizza into like a goddamn pot of boiling water. I'm gonna take I'm gonna get like a store Red Baron and just do that. Treat it like it's fucking Bawan. But anyway, sorry Cavendish. Go ahead and tell us. So tell us about Yuri's character. Why did you decide to make her besides like frustration, and what do you think she adds to the game? Where do you think you're going to take her in the next development sessions?
I don't know. I just write for her. She's my favorite one from the game, so
powerful.
I mean, what else needs to be said?
Like, I don't put a huge amount of philosophical struggle sessions and thought into exactly which characters to make. It just seems like
that's like half the fun.
That's true. There is sort of like an artificial significance that's been placed over her because of how long it's been. But yeah, you would kind of just approach her. It's like you just write her.
She's hot. She's cute. I wrote her.
The philosophical decisions behind making a character is what this entire podcast episode is about.
That's pretty much right. It's basically like let's navel gaze about like our pornography and grant it legitimacy in the process.
Well,
so what are like your goals for Yuri? How do you want to like kind of capture her personality?
Well, I think the main thing is that when I was writing her, one thing I was doing was looking at a lot of other really high quality characters in the CE and sort of figuring out what exactly it was about their generic lines that made them so good. And I just sort of tried to emulate that and communicate and use similar writing techniques to communicate her personality in a way that makes her really engaging for whoever's playing against her. Really try to get that immersion as to like, this isn't just, a little gimmick, like you're actually playing against the character from the game. That's what I was aiming for. really immersive experience of you're actually playing against Yuri.
All right.
What do you think is like her niche?
Yeah, that was actually, damn it, that was going to be my next question.
Well, there's some people who are really into the Act 2 crazy version, but it's not really my thing. I mean, I probably will have to add it because people want it. But my main focus is making her more the standard Act 1, who seems to be like the actual like real version of her.
What is that, though,
Yeah.
for people who haven't played the game?
Well, she's like a shy bookworm who's really insecure about how other people perceive her. And she has obsessive tendencies.
What do you think you've like leaned into to distinguish her from some of the other characters like that? Like, how is like this isn't me like being an asshole, but it's like compared to Hanako, right? I think that's the obvious comparison. How have you made that adjustment?
She wasn't overcooked for one.
Well, yes.
Yeah, she's medium rare.
Oh boy.
She's still pink on the inside.
Oh, they're all pink on the inside.
Well, the main thing, I think I tried to take a bit of a philosophical angle, sort of like how Galatea is a bit more on the deep thought end.
Yeah.
I'd like, there's the standard questions where she talks about her various, sort of superficial interests like tea or aromatherapy candles or books and literature and that kind of thing. But I also tried to have sort of a philosophical aspect to her where she's a bit more of a deep thinker on various topics.
I think that's really. I think there's like a lot to be done with that in the sense of just like, especially because like she's the last of the Dokis. I think you could do a lot of really interesting things with her as far as that goes. Sorry, I know that's like very vague. I'm also just like having trouble focusing. Sorry about that. Solitaire, what do you think about Yuri? And SPNatI too. Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, so Yuri, her model and posing is excellent, which is what you'd expect from having an art team of Beta and Thursdays. Her voice seems accurate in character too. Just do whatever Hex tells you to. That's all I got.
Oh, I've already been listening to what Hex's suggestions. That's fixed a lot of stuff with her.
Well, like have her tits leak out milk?
I think even he has restraint not to ask for that.
I mean, this isn't really a character or like an archetype that I particularly like. So there's not a whole lot of nitpicking I have for the character. But I think that's a good thing because there's nothing there's nothing specific for me to call out as wrong. If there's nothing obviously wrong, then you're definitely on the right track. One thing I will say though is that her butt pose, that is very, very good. One of the best in the game.
Hold on. I didn't hear anything about a butt pose.
There's a butt pose.
Yeah, there's a butt pose.
I played her, but she won, so maybe I didn't see it.
Gotta try harder to get that booty.
Oh, no, the side profile butt pose. That's the good shit.
Chef's kiss.
Her shoulder blades are a little big. I'm just gonna post this in the chat so to create more work for Solitaire, so he has to edit it later and censor it. You can censor it however you choose. There we go.
Put Amy's like focus picture wherever you need to censor it.
Some nice strong outlines on the butt. I feel like those need to fade away a little bit more. I don't know, her butt looks very circular. I feel like it should hang down a little bit more.
Are you saying that you wish it was built like a cement mixer? Perhaps a dump truck?
Namas, what is this obsession? Has there been a lot of like construction work in your area lately?
It's been so much. It's hard to sleep. Anyway.
It's Namas' secret fetish, construction worker.
Is that why you've been so tired on the last podcast?
Look, I've been mixing a lot of cement lately.
I don't want to think about Yuri's ass as a cement mixer because stuff pours out of a cement mixer.
We're going to a very dark place now.
I mean, if that's what you're into, I guess. But
I think I've really.
starts off all runny.
I enjoyed targeting Yuri with Natsuki a lot more than I really expected to.
You're just not touching that one.
What? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm good. But I basically I targeted like the Doki Doki interactions are always like a shitload of targeting, and honestly, I've been dreading the Natsuki Yuri interactions in a lot of ways because people have really specific hopes for them.
That's Suri.
So I did none of them, and I just had my wife write them. So, haha, joke's on you guys. It's Napsu's fault if it's not good.
Isn't that Suri?
I don't know. I just signed off on it.
You haven't even read them yet.
I remember reading them to make sure there wasn't like dumb trolly shit in there, but I don't have any like concrete details.
Do Amy and Yuri target each other?
Yes.
I think so. I think pretty extensively. But yeah.
Is it like the Spider-Man pointing meme?
Yeah, get it because Amy likes spiders.
Well, they're both the fourth Doki.
4 and 4A. Yeah, so she's in. She's good. I think honestly of the Dokis.
I feel like we should be more excited about this, but it's happened. And
I feel like you're. It's just kind of like we've waited so long.
It's wanting is better than having, you know.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like I think Yuri is not my favorite character, and the archetype is not my favorite archetype. But I think she's good. Like I think she's great. I think if you've been waiting for Yuri, this is what you get. If you want a knife Yuri, well, I'm sure Cavendish will get there.
God damn it.
But you know,
God damn it. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that, you know, she's not really my type of character, but, you know, I'm glad that she's here for people who really like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. Now everybody is high cultured, so.
Why is this entire fucking cast full of people who don't really give a shit about Yuri on the big Yuri reveal podcast? Could we have gotten a worse team? It's like, yeah, whatever. It's not really my type.
Yeah, we really should have gotten more Shy Girl fans. I mean, I'm her writer, and I think it's pretty clear you know what I'm into, but
yeah,
it's sort of difficult to articulate exactly what I was aiming for. Like, I'm just trying to make her a good character, I guess.
You're succeeding. Yeah. I mean, I played a game with her. She's a quality character. She had interesting things to say. You know, I always like characters that get kind of introspective. It's just that the shy schoolgirl thing is not really for me. You know, I'm not at that point in my life. In fact, I don't think I was ever really into that. But more to the point, just, you know, schoolgirls is so not really my thing, but she's definitely quality.
Well, schoolgirl is more like her, like more of a job position. It doesn't really say much about her personality.
Fair enough.
True, just you know, the innocence, the naivete. I don't really go for that. I wrote Ryuko, but I felt I just kind of got tired of that shtick after a while.
That's fair, I guess. I mean, it does kind of one thing that was a bit of an issue in writing her is she's very restrained in what she says. So a lot of the more outlandish stuff I want to say I have to put into internal thoughts.
Oh yeah, dude. I have that same problem with Maya, and I strictly avoid any internal thoughts because I think it's just cheap.
I think you gotta like have her get really pissed off though. I think like someone has to just go into it and be like, hey asshole, get mad.
What pisses her off?
Natsuki.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, she actually does have a rebuke pose that I barely use, and I expect to use it a lot when interacting with Natsuki. So
go
look forward to whenever I finish those responses.
Go make Napsu like Yuri and get like a streaming chat interview, and then I'm sure it'll go poorly, but in the way people want it to.
So because she's never really been my type, and I've never played Doki Doki Literature Club, and I don't care. It was just kind of funny to me that she wasn't in the game.
I liked the meme,
and people kept asking for her. So I didn't really know if she'd ever get made or not. But it was I just thought it was funny.
Oh, I thought it was funny too. Like at one point, I was going to make Yuri Tamura from Watamode.
I just enjoyed the Schadenfreude.
Just so we get the Yuri added to testing thing, and then people go there and see it's not the right one and lose their minds.
The year 2020 has been Yuri, Doki Doki, and SPNatI, and everything else. It's just like nothing this year is just nothing is sacred. Yeah. Any other closing thoughts?
I mean, all things considered, I've been having a pretty good year.
Yeah, you know, honestly, it's like I just get to stay at home and get paid to do that, and I'm like, yeah, all right. I'm not gonna complain.
That's been my life goal.
It's fucking amazing. Anyway, so any other thoughts about Yuri before we can move on to the questions and answers?
Girls making out is just super hot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could watch that all day. So I love Yuri.
Well, I'll just add in that one thing I went, at least for the sexual aspect, is more just vanilla wholesomeness, which really appeals to me.
yeah, that sounds good.
I don't really get people who are really into kinky stuff.
Yeah, I feel that. So I think that's good. Yeah, I think Yuri is a good character. So anyway, Yunyun also hit the main roster, and so we have some questions about how to.
Yeah, so let's just move on.
So we have some questions about how to beginnings and endings of characters. So we have our first topic today is when is a character complete? I think this is like actually a really interesting question because we're running into the point where between developer burnout and like other hobbies and other concerns, it's just really difficult to keep up with the same volume of work as well as the commitment it takes. Some people don't really like updating their characters and they want to just keep making new ones. I think that's a really valid strategy, but for you guys, what do you think the end criteria is for when you stop developing a character? I can go into what I think when it's my turn, but I wanted to start with Cavendish. As far as, as someone who's one of the newer creators, I think by far the newest on this cast, what do you think your finish criteria is? At what point do you say, I'm not updating Yuri or Kira anymore and I'm just good with that? What does that look like for you? Or what do you consider to be a completed character?
Well, I'll start by saying that it's extremely appropriate that we just skipped over Yunyun reaching main roster. That's very appropriate for her.
Yeah.
Second of all, as for when is a character complete? Now, I don't plan to stop developing anytime soon, barring external circumstances. But a character that is complete, I would say, it's mainly about nailing all the fundamental aspects of character. The most important thing is, of course, good distinctive generics that don't repeat very much, and ideally, if you can get them to the point where your character just doesn't repeat them at all in a single game, like Maya is pretty good for that, and Jura. There's also, although you don't need that kind of line count to achieve that, but shoot for the stars, shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars. It's good for a character to have extensive filters to ensure that they properly interact with other characters if they don't directly target them, which is good for future proofing, but also for in case there's any characters that you just never got around to targeting. You can't really target them all unless you go nuts.
Yeah.
It's also important to target the franchise mates appropriately. Now, sometimes you'll have two characters from the same franchise who don't know each other within canon, so they don't really need to interact that much. But you would expect two characters who are best friends, like, say, Ruby and Weiss. Those two should interact a lot. Otherwise, it would just be odd. Because a lot of generics are sort of direct this as something like this could be said towards a stranger, so it really comes across as weird if it's said towards someone that they know very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as regarding interactions, you should probably prioritize having deeper ones with fewer characters rather than just going for a large number, than aiming for targeting a huge number of characters, but all those interactions are really shallow and brief. I also think, just so to avoid bug reports, you probably want to target all the must-target situations. Famously, Amy, cowboy hat Amy, not Yuri Doki Doki, not Doki Doki Amy.
Boy, I can't wait until we get Amy Rose on testing, and then we'll seriously have to juggle all the Amy.
Man, Amy, and Amy. Amy, and Ami. I think I think as far as targeting must targets, we'll get into this for future proofing, but I think there's a couple of really good tags that help with that I do recommend people take a look at. But yeah, I think there's some really interesting points, especially about getting the character's voice down right and not really having an end state in mind. I do think with Solitaire and SPNatI, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say as well on this topic. So Solitaire, what do you think, what is your end state? When are you going to say, yep, Saki's done, Miko and Reimu are probably not quite in that same boat, but I think Saki's the character you're probably most prone to letting go. What is your end criteria for that? You have epilogues, you have future proofing. What next?
Yeah, if I ever stop updating Miko, you can go ahead and bury me because it means I'm dead.
You can be dead with Saki.
Not bad. But a wise man once said, a poem is never actually finished. It just stops moving. And that's really the creative process, whether it's SPNatI or, any sort of creative outlet, like a movie or TV show, anything. You're never really finished with a creative endeavor. You really just kind of give up. Like, you really can't tinker with something until oblivion. So you need some sort of deadline to just say, okay, pencils down. I can't feasibly work on this anymore. I have to push it out either to the public or to whoever. There's probably a few stages when it comes to being complete. And the first stage is generally sponsorship, completing sponsorship. And I think in terms of that, it's really a matter of when you think you're ready. What I did for Saki was determine ahead of time my own personal criteria for having the character complete and done with being on testing. So for me, I wanted her in a place where I only needed to keep up with adding new targets and new responses. So I wanted to have all of her future proofing in terms of tags, filtered lines, generics, and her other architecture taken care of, as well as giving her 4 different epilogues. So yeah, she was on testing for a while. I think for Reimu, I'll probably wait until she's main game to start her epilogues, just because of how long it took me to make Saki's, and I'm not going to spend that long on Reimu. She's just going to have, one for boys, one for girls. She doesn't need, 2 different states of how dead she is, like Saki. So I'm just going to limit it to sort of like one epilogue with a male and female version. But it's probably better if I keep that until after she's main game, because epilogues are nice, but I don't think they're absolutely necessary for getting off sponsorship. And then I think after that, because you can always add more targeted dialogue, you never really have a complete character so much as one that you've more or less just abandoned because for whatever reason you don't love them as much. So yeah, that's more or less my take on it.
As the go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's just like my philosophy. There's no such thing really as a complete character, just abandoned characters. And the mass has a lot of abandoned characters.
That's sort of I kind of agree with that too. I'm generally of the opinion that you can probably put off adding epilogues or other like big gimmicks. I say gimmick, but I mean that I don't mean that in a negative way, but like say animated poses, although I'm not really a huge fan of those, or like joint interactions, like how Neptune and Bernie sort of interact post forfeit. That stuff can sort of wait until after sponsorship, I think. But I sort of agree. I just keep updating your characters. What are you doing? Are you a coward? Come on.
I completely disagree, and I have abandoned many, many characters over my time in SPNatI. I think honestly,
it's easy for you to say that now, Cavendish, because you have 2 and they aren't finished.
When you come back to me when you're at like 10, 11, and it's just like, no, thank you. Or even like, I think I started who was the first to get abandoned? Probably 9S.
Probably 9S or Gwen.
Probably 9S. Yeah, probably Gwen or 9S. I remember for a while that...
Look, I mean, we don't want this to feel like a job.
Yeah, so for me...
I'd rather a bunch of smaller projects that devs are really excited about working on for a while.
Yeah, and I think that for me...
have them all be burned out.
Yeah, I think for me it's like, I welcome anyone who wants to take over one of my like abandoned projects and keep carrying it. Like, you do you, man. Like, I am happy to just let you... gut it as you want or use it, I don't care, just go have fun with it. If you think I'm an idiot for writing Mulan the way I did, go fix it. But I guess with me, like, the complete state is really when you don't feel like writing them anymore. You can always come back to it, but really the second you decide I would rather be doing something else is pretty much the nail in the coffin. So for me, writing Natsuki, Akko, and Marinette Adrian is it's still fun for me. I still have a lot of joy doing it, despite the fact that I haven't lately, just because my life is what it is. But I think like the feeling of like getting a character completed and on test and successful is its own reward in some ways. And the way I look at it is when you make content for the game and it gets into the live game, you've passed like a quality standard that enables this character to be enjoyed by the players. It's not just about the other devs. And to me, that's kind of its own reward. If you release a character that has been, sufficiently future-proof, the art's good, the best part is you don't have to come back to it. Someone else can do that for you if they're passionate about it or not, right? So I guess to me, my actual criteria for when they're complete is just when you're tired of writing them. And as far as what you do to send them off into the wilds, is just you just let them go. It's not really that complicated to me. And I think more people would be happier if they're like, yeah, I just wanted to write this character and release them. They're good. I don't need to really do much more with that. And if you wanted like targeted lines from them, I'm sure if you just reached out and were like, hey, I really need 2B to target 9S. I don't think I could in good conscience be like, well, fuck you, that's your problem now. Like, just ask people if you want stuff from them or write it yourself. That's always a good solution.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand it's totally not feasible to expect everyone to keep up with all their characters, especially if you have, a dozen of them or whatever. It's more sort of like it really is like sometimes you just need to say, okay, there's nothing more I can do with this. This is done.
Right.
And I mean, that's fine too. It's not really feasible to expect every character to be updated always. Like if I had like a SPNatI genie who could grant me one wish, but only about SPNatI because it's a shitty genie, like I would ask for it to make it so every character got updated all the time, but without a genie, it's not going to happen.
Can Miko grant wishes?
No, she can't. She's just better.
But she knows what your desires are.
She does. That doesn't mean she's going to grant them.
What if your desire is to fuck her?
It depends. Are you a hot girl?
No.
Then
but I do currently have a hot girl as an avatar.
I mean, Jura, sure.
That's close enough. Come on.
Yeah.
They should banter more.
Yeah, they should. Maybe. I probably need to go back and look at all my earlier targets. I know Marinette's were a mess.
It's okay. It'll be a bit before I can respond, but
yeah, I can barely look at those myself.
I'd just like to add that
the old ones that I wrote.
Spinanon, what's your end condition as someone who's abandoned a single character rather than my like 8 or so?
Well, let me quote let me give a similar quote by a different person. As to the quote that Solitaire gave. Films are never finished; they simply stop making them. That's by George Lucas, shortly before he released the Star Wars special editions. So maybe he should have stopped making them. But I feel like I'm a very bad person to ask about this.
Oh, undoubtedly.
I mean, I think like you have no end state. Like it's just like Armia and Jura like complete never. But yeah. Sorry, I always fuck that one up.
Do you
I kind of do it.
Do you want my personal complete in quotation marks?
Yeah,
state,
I do.
Or what I think would apply for most people.
Do yourself, then do others. It's like most things in life.
Do yourself.
Look,
then do
it's fuck it. You know what I mean.
That's what teenagers do.
I'm talking about masturbation.
Yeah, I got it. This is only a whole game about masturbation.
Yeah, anyway.
So, I mean, when do I consider a character complete? I haven't made a whole lot of them, but basically, I think of this as, when can I release them? I personally would never release a character if they didn't have an epilogue. Like, I want to do that on testing. I want to make sure they have something. I take the approach that I could always go back and improve anything about the character later, but at least put an epilogue out there, and if I need to improve it, I can do that. Epilogues, obviously good generic lines are a good way to future-proof. Targets only take you so far. I know some people really like filters.
I do. I really like filters.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll talk about that.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, but honestly, like, as I always say, generic lines are your bread and butter. You want to make sure that just you've captured their voice as well as you can in that moment, and you feel like they introduce themselves and talk about themselves a fair bit. I just feel like an epilogue is a really good capstone to a project, and it'll make you feel like it's finished.
I'd agree with that.
And it'll make casual players feel like they're finished. Because there are definitely casual players who look at characters that don't have epilogues as sort of like side content, which is a shame, but it's true.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, it is definitely rewarding to finish an epilogue. So I'd say that's probably the main thing. Now, for me, there's just not a whole lot of characters I'm interested in making. I mean, there's a lot of characters that I like somewhat and maybe would like to see in the game, but not to the point where I'm going to put in that effort, because if given the choice, I would rather just continue building up my personal Tower of Babel that is Maya, Jura, and Revi. I mean, whenever I get a new idea of something I can do, like Maya and Jura talking to each other on their little communicators, or fiddling with their clothes, or fixing the hair on their butt poses, like to make the shading better. That's something that I think a lot of people would probably try to, or like using weird marker situations. I feel like that's something a lot of people would try to do on new projects, and I would rather integrate that into my old projects. And if I have to go back and retrofit everything about them, I love working on them. I would love to see them just continuously get better and better and better.
Just truly Sisyphus at his task.
I mean, if you've seen how much I change the poses, I'm never going to be completely happy with it. I go through these phases where I think something looks good, and then later on I'm like, oh god, that's fucking gross.
Yeah.
But I don't really see that as a bad thing.
I don't
just
think so.
see, okay, I've gained more experience, and I'm glad that my waifu looks even fucking better now, and I don't have to look back on her and be like, nah,
that is some commitment.
I fucked her up. I can go back and fix her. That's kind of what I really like about this game. Is it fits my workload of constant tinkering and building up very well,
which is nice.
And I think a lot of people aren't like that, and it's okay to not be like that. But that's just what I really like. And if you just want to move on, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I just say,
no, exactly. And on that note, like,
give them some good generic lines.
What do you think your end state is for other people then?
Well, kind of what I was saying before. I mean, for one, I feel like an epilogue is just a good thing in general for the game. It makes casual players feel like they're complete. It's something that I think a lot of new releases don't have, which is a shame because they used to be more common when they were easier to make.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, like, a casual player will probably have a different perspective on this compared to a dev. A dev will never think that they've completely gotten the character right, There's always something that can be improved. But for a casual player, there's like 100 other characters to try, and they play a game with them. It's like, that was pretty good. And the fact that they maybe don't target, the fact that Ryuji doesn't target Akko might bother Thursdays, but it probably won't bother the average player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's pretty on point as far as like what I think.
You probably don't have to wring your hands as much as you do.
Right. I just don't. I don't wring them at all. I'm like, this character's done. Deal with it.
It's not that big of a deal.
See you on the next waifu.
I mean, the only thing that I think is sad, and again, this is because I'm a dev,
right, about
characters being abandoned, is I feel like I missed the boat on targeting them and bantering with them.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
So like,
which is always a shame.
I mean, like, who's a character that you'd say that is a, significant? Like, who is your missed opportunity then? Because I think, I guess, like, from my perspective, that's mostly a function of a character leaving test. Because when they're on test, it's like you want to, you really want to show your stuff. You want to respond to targeted lines for the most part. But what happens when do you think that window closes, and which characters do you regret not being able to banter with?
Well, that's the thing, is that you don't know when it's going to close, because you don't know when the other person's going to be like, I'm done. You know? Okay, Namaspa's muted. It's just something that you have to posted something. Sorry, BRB. Okay, apparently Napsu is having a medical emergency. I'm going to assume that's what's going on.
He's probably just peeing.
I'll just add that I agree with there sort of being like goal. You want to have specific goals to aim for. Like for both of my characters, I have to-do lists that while I do add stuff to them and subtract stuff as I actually complete it, I do have a set number of things that once I'm done, I will for sponsorship for both of them.
Solitaire, just put in like some kind of editing joke as we wait for the Aspen to turn, the Jeopardy waiting music.
I've already taken a screenshot.
I'm back.
We're making fun of you while you were gone.
I mean, I kind of figured that.
Is Napsu dead? She hasn't even been on the podcast yet.
Yeah, it's no more Napsu. I'm just gonna steal all of her characters. I'm truly sovereign in my home.
Did Amy get loose from her cage?
Amy got loose. It's a real shame. Yeah, so I think I did not follow.
So that's something that
the last part.
That's something that a dev gets worried about, is not being able to target a character, but a player probably wouldn't mind.
I mean, I think it's it depends on the character too, right? Because if I just never targeted Yuri because I don't want to, that would be a problem. I think this is a problem for Monica and Natsuki and just Monica and Sayori and characters that just don't aren't really receiving updates, and then they have important interactions that come in. I think that's a shame. I almost wish that more writers would be okay kind of sock puppeting other characters, would be hey, I know you don't really want to write these lines. I've already written them for you. Here you go.
That's probably what I'm going to have to do with Sayori and Monica.
I think Amy did something like that.
And the thing is, it's not like there's a contract you sign where you waive all rights to a character. You could drop them, and if if a big franchise partner comes out, you could throw a couple lines their way. It's not a big deal. Sit down for 20 minutes, bang out 3 lines. It's you could do that if no one's adopted them. It's not a big deal.
The only problem for me would be that I'd be worried about getting the voice correct. For instance, for Monica, I'd be very conscious about her voice, especially since I think Viz did a really good job in capturing her voice. So because of that, I'd be hesitant to write lines from her to one of my characters, just because I'm not 100% sure I'd be able to capture her voice. And that's always sort of the tricky part, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, I've been writing Maya for 3 years, and I still feel like I'm getting her voice wrong.
I think when it comes to issues of voice, I'm usually pretty confident that someone's hey, idiot, you're not doing it right. They would just tell me. But I also think that
I hope so.
Yeah, right. I think SPNatI's just got his he's just sharpening his axe in the corner, being so about them Adrian lines. But I think phone box.
Oh yeah, you totally ruined my favorite character, Cat Noir.
Yeah. SPNatI is on record for liking Dick.
My heart throb.
Anyway, I think phone box is a really good he captured voices really well, and I think going to him for suggestions is always great. I also think for Monica specifically, I know Beta has who's another creator who's made Saki.
Different Saki.
Yeah, different Saki. He made the model for Mulan and a bunch of other things. But yeah, if you go to him for Monica stuff, I'm sure he'd be quite enthusiastic to contribute if if he's having a good time. But I think that's all that really is kind of the synopsis on when a character is done. I think the consensus we have is basically you're done with the character when you feel like you don't want to do more with them. At the same time, there's nothing stopping you from tinkering endlessly. It's really a personal choice, but epilogues help a lot with that.
Absolutely.
So I guess the next topic we wanted to delve into today is how do you future-proof characters? I think this is going to be more helpful for newer authors than it is for older ones, just because you're not future-proofing stuff because you're not like future-proofing is the sign that you're okay to not develop them further. So for me, this was my question, so I'm just going to start, and then I'll pop it over to Cavendish and Solitaire to argue over, and then SPNatI can correct us. But I think filtered lines are really important for this, just because you never know when Yuri Doki Doki is going to hit the table, but you know there's going to be other shy characters. You know there's going to be other characters in school uniforms. You know that there's going to be characters with purple hair. Just like give your characters opinions on these things. Like I think most of the filters are pretty easy to map to, like, does your character like the police? How do they react to magic? You know, what kind of world are they from? The ability to respond to these things just in various random parts of your character add unexpected texture and save you from, wow, you're taking off your, clothing name when they're like blowing it off with like dynamite or, whatever people come up with, which like Hex and Zeus have gone to really great lengths to provide like a really robust system for capturing those scenarios. Like, yeah, you can't capture everything all the time, but I think if you have lines that target clothing destruction and like assisted strip and like tentacle forfeits, that kind of stuff, you cover a lot of your bases and your character looks like they're paying attention even if you, the writer, are not. So I recommend like getting those tags down ASAP, almost in the same way that you'd have like different genders for the masturbation cases. So Cavendish, so you're not really in a state to future-proof it, but do you see characters that you're like, yeah, this is a little like not super fun to play against because they haven't been like built out, I guess would be the version of the question for you.
Like none particularly come in mind, but I do notice whenever like a character has a filtered line that targets another character, it's always interesting to see that it really points out that the author behind them was really thinking forward like that. Like you might see some line about, oh, that person has red hair as well, or something like that. That's always a good sign. So I definitely would seconding how Hex and Zeus made a really good tagging system. That's extremely helpful for making sure that you can, since the tags can really capture the essence of a character, it can be really useful to just carpet bomb your own character with a whole bunch of filtered lines so that they can properly react to pretty much any character that appears new on testing, and you don't have, which gives you a bit of breathing room to target them without your character coming across as, really out of date. Or also, even if your character is, abandoned, then their filtered lines will make sure that they're able to properly interact with other characters. Like, I already have Yuri targeting tentacle forfeits, for example.
That's always a good tag.
You could always do the absolutely insane thing that Solitaire did, where Saki's ZLS has a marker system, so she'll target her franchise mates who haven't hit the table yet. So if someone just drops Yuri or Junko on, she'll recognize them and be like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, most of those I stole from the MASP, the idea behind it, at least.
Oh, there you go.
Really?
Yeah, I think Natsuki had some mechanic or other where she would, target one of her franchise mates by name using, a marker system.
Yeah, I think it's like when it's Natsuki and, Sakura and Saki at a table, and then, one more Doki, but the only one that responds to that is Amy, so it's kind of like, eh.
Wasn't there some character that had a bunch of false positives because they had a name of a franchise mate that other characters targeted but didn't actually exist yet?
Some kind of it was a Danganronpa, right?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
There's a character named Maki in Danganronpa.
Yeah.
That was it.
There's also...
And then there was a Maki from Love Live.
Yeah.
That was what you're thinking of, I think.
And it fired off all these lines. Because originally, Maki from Danganronpa was another knife wife, I think. Ended up... She was being made in early 2018, but never got off the ground. So all those old lines that never played suddenly came back from the grave.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always find that to be really funny.
Yeah, because Maki and Nishikino came in and stole the Maki tag. The other thing I was going to say is that I was sort of wondering what the opinion is should filtered lines be actually contain questions, or should they just be written to not require a response but acknowledge the target's traits? for example, say Marinette has a filtered line for magical girls. What would work better, like her asking, "Hey, where do your powers come from?" Or versus, "I'm sure a powerful magical girl like you can triumph in this game like you triumph over evil." Like the latter doesn't require to.
Oh, I'd avoid questions because even filters
Nobody
are not specific enough.
Well, what sucks is like filters used to be like part of the CE, so you could see if like you had inbound lines and like filters that would get asked to your character. But since you can't anymore, it's hard to use those as leverage to be like, no one gets offended when like Kizuna-ai like shit talks them to their face just because okay, first of all, responding to Kizuna-ai in 2020.jpg, but like. You're not writing those filtered lines to get other characters to react. You're writing those so your character looks like they're paying attention, to me.
Yeah, they're kind of shallow, superficial stuff most of the time to basic conversation off of. And there's no reason to really respond to them when you could, unless the character is like never getting updated again, and that's a pretty sure thing. You might as well just wait for them to actually target you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or take the initiative and target them, show some interest.
I do wish people...
Instead of just waiting for all your suitors to just come from the ether and appreciate you for you, go out and actually, play the field a little. Introduce yourself.
SPNatI says adding, throwing targeted lines at every character.
I knew that was... when I first started working on Maya, I was like, well, I really can't demand anyone target this obscure-ass character.
And I did it anyway. I just, fucking, like, solidarity brought you in, my boy. And now you've surpassed us all. And I appreciate that to this day. You're welcome.
I felt like I had a friend.
I'm glad we're friends, SPNatI. I don't know what you look like. I don't know what your real name is, but I'm glad we're friends.
Do you really want to?
No, not really. And I think that's why we're
Isn't it better this way? I can tell you I don't look better than Jura's face.
I don't, I think none of us look like in real life what any of us imagine. I know like people think of me as this like 6'6".
You've posted your real face.
Yeah, but not everywhere. But, it's like I know everyone thinks of Namasp as this like 6'10" authoritarian, jackbooted sex god, but alas, I'm none of those things. I am just one snaky boy who doesn't want to be stepped on.
I'm pretty sure I'm taller.
I think you're probably taller I think a lot of people are taller than me. But anyway, so what are
Oh fuck, we got off topic.
That's fine. What are
just me and the math flirting.
So
future proofing. My point was that I just wanted I knew that I might as well take the initiative and target all these characters so people would be at least the least bit interested in my character. And it worked out, it built a lot of goodwill. Is it my turn? Should I talk about future proofing?
Yeah, go for it. You started, go for it.
I have to wait so long to talk that I just forget when it's my turn.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You can go first next time.
Future. I agree that targeting filters are really powerful for future proofing. The only reason I don't do it is because I just don't feel like doing it, and I totally want to do it more in the future. Really, the most important thing in the end is, again, I think we've gotten into this mindset that SPNatI is all about the targeted interactions, which are very interesting, but they require a lot of active development, so you really can't future-proof for that super well.
Right.
The most important thing, and I think the thing that most casual players ultimately look for, is just the character as an individual, because most of the time it's going to be your generic lines playing. It's almost impossible to get around that. Pitt tried, and the minute he stopped getting updated, he crashed and burned. He flew too close to the sun.
Oh.
And his Icarus wings melted.
Oh.
Cog, come back.
Cog, please.
So, it's you got to have strong generic lines. There's no two ways about it. It sucks sometimes. I find it pretty rewarding to come up with some good ones, but not everyone does. But they just gotta at least get your character's point across. Give them a sexual edge that makes sense. Give them some kind of niche that people can always look back to. It's like, hey, that's the really shy, embarrassed girl, and that plays into her sexuality. And even if she never talks to anyone else, any of the new characters, at least she'll always have that.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's Moon. But
remember the medium. Hey, people remember Moon.
I like Moon. Moon's a good character.
Yunyun is good.
She's shitty and awful, but she is certainly memorable.
Let's fight about Moon on the podcast.
She's the troll too of SPNatI.
Moon fight podcast when. So you blew up the moon. Anyway.
If she's the troll too, then who's the room of SPNatI?
Amy. Like, except Amy's good, so it's like that's not even a good comparison.
Amy's good though.
Yeah, it's like who
took way too much time and money to make and is uncanny and weird.
Who's trying to? You know what? I think like that's a question that it's just going to be like no matter what we answer, it's going to be really mean. So I think we should
actually, maybe Moon is the room of SPNatI because like
yeah, I could kind of see that.
Yeah,
because Frankie just completely backpedaled when she got received poorly and is just like, oh yeah, I totally made her bad on purpose.
I mean, I don't know.
The classic Tom Wiseau move.
I think he's an I actually is a competitor. Sorry, honey, but like, it's like everyone's just like so hyped.
It looks great and it's shot on film, but is awful.
Everyone's like so hyped for this character. It's just like, what is like the first thing you do when you come to a community? Oh, I got this really great concept. Okay, that's cool. What are you gonna do with it?
I don't even think that works because
troll the audience, of course.
Kizuna is good until the forfeit, though. That's like saying the room is good until the ending.
I mean, it's
nothing about it is good.
It is if you're really drunk. So
I'm sure there's people listening to this that know nothing about the room, and this entire conversation has been incomprehensible.
Go watch it.
Go watch it. It's like it's a movie everyone should watch, like unapologetically. Like you're missing out on some culture. It's the Citizen Kane of bad movies.
What a story in the mask.
Hi SPNatI. Well, I have breast cancer, so let's talk about.
You are tearing me apart, SPNatI.
Oh God! All right, so
meanwhile, Solitaire, I will record everything.
Yeah, I agree with what Namasp has been saying. So what I did for Saki, Cav mentioned it. I set up a system of markers where if there's a random Franshushu girl at the table, then Saki will just throw out some generic questions that they can answer. This is because Napsu made future-proofing Saki one of her sponsorship requirements, so I did that.
Oh, is that why she was bitching so much about the Konosuba thing on Yunyun? Oh yeah, she had to future-proofing for future franchise mates. Anyway, sorry, Solitaire. Go ahead. We'll come back to this.
I mean, like Jesse kind of does the same thing. Any character that has like a bunch of like generic Q&A, that's something that at least people can always kind of engage with, even if you don't update them anymore.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So targeting tags is always a good method of future-proofing. And then, future creators, come along and add a new character that's just a girl in a box, and your tag targets no longer work, but that's fine. And then, just like filter lines if they're with another member of the franchise, just so you don't get things like Hanako asking Emmy what school she goes to because she sees she's got a school uniform. Don't assume that no other characters from your franchise will ever be made, because they probably will be.
That's why you just pick obscure-ass franchises with limited numbers of characters in it.
Like Miraculous?
Yeah. The day someone makes Alia, or like literally anyone from that shows today, I just fucking shoot myself. Like I'm not even done writing lines to each other, let alone like having like another Miraculous character in there.
I know what my next character is now.
Oh, fuck me. Please don't.
I haven't even watched it, but I will.
Actually, that's like one of those like monkey's paws where it's like I don't really want to do it, but like if you add like Alia to the game, I'd be like, yeah, good life choice, great work.
Napsu, if you're listening, make Alia.
Do it. I'll just like break her computer. I'll just be like, no.
Just be like, Merry Christmas, baby.
No, I think like, yeah. I also think Napsu is like kind of like finishing up her last couple characters.
She's gonna give you a present, and you're gonna open up, and it's just gonna be like check SPNatI.
Yeah, it's like, oh fuck my life. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna make you a present, honey. It's like, oh really? That's great. And then it's just like, yeah, go write like 400 Natsuki lines. Okay. It's like, yes, dear, babe. It's 4 p.m. It's time for your like line, like penis pumping. So Solitaire,
You just gave up on that joke.
I really did. Anyway, Solitaire. Any other kind of closing remarks on Franchushu and future proofing like that?
Line count pumping.
It's a really good tip, by the way, everyone who's listening. Like, future proofing my franchise is something that you really should do because it saves you a lot of grief down the line.
Yeah, I mean, not really.
Future proofing your franchise makes it sound like you're renovating your Dunkin' Donuts or something.
I am a corporate shill.
We're gonna like you got all like the fry cooks together in the back rooms. Like we're gonna future proof this franchise
by dumping the management into the fryer.
Yeah.
You can do it in Russian. That's pretty impressive.
On this podcast, we discussed the upcoming revolution as SPNatI and Namask pretend they're not part of the bourgeoisie. That would be.
I serve the SPNatI Union.
Okay. So the next topic is basically what are some effective incentives for new developers? Like what is like a good way to get new people started in SPNatI? I think the way I looked back at this is like the Masquerade was really effective at getting people to make shit, and we got Wibbly out of it, which was awesome. On the other hand, like everyone got super tired and burnt out because it was a lot. But I think as far as incentives for new developers go, I think my perspective is if you're a new developer and you put a character on the table, even if it's like moderately good, I'm going to target them with a bunch of characters just because I want to make sure that you feel welcome and you continue to develop it. So I think like Levitain and Jim and Yuri have all been like this. I keep meaning to target Pyrrha, but I think I'm just waiting on Cavendish's kind of proposed next passive updates to have more stuff to engage with there. That's what I think is like a good incentive from my perspective.
I wouldn't have cared about Pyrrha, but then Cavendish targeted Maya a bunch. I'm like, hey, I really like Pyrrha now. That's all it takes.
Oh, I know exactly who to suck up to succeed. Don't worry.
It's a good life strategy.
Just if you want me to like your waifu, just have me like a tangentially think of her when I think of Maya, and then I'll just subconsciously associate the two.
Does Pyrrha target Miko?
Not quite yet.
Then she sucks.
Shame that.
But she will. I don't have too many ideas on this, but I'll just list off what I typed out. I do agree that the Masquerade was a really good way to get people into it. I was actually going to join it, but I decided not to. The one downside of it is that it seemed to have burned a lot of people out. I also think it's probably good to have sort of encourage fanfare both on the Discord and the subreddit for when new characters come out, especially ones from new creators. It kind of really is. It's a nice eco boost, but also just makes you feel like you actually achieved something.
Yeah. Do you think the moderators should do that, or do you think that's like on the responsibility of the person, like who made them?
I don't know. I posted both the announcement posts for my characters.
That's kind of how I feel.
I just mean like, not that the mods should be posting the announcement posts, but more just it's a good idea if you're already sort of an established community member to really encourage people who put a new character on testing. I mean, not everybody's going to get the same level of fanfare that Yuri got, but that's sort of a special case.
Right. I think like in general, anyone who posts something to the subreddit tends to get a lot of accolade for that.
The other thing is I think a lot of it, making the guides a bit more accessible and making more of them would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, that is something I think has really fallen off over time. Just, for whatever reason, it feels like, oh goodness gracious. It feels like guides used to be like a bigger part of the ecosystem. And I think there's like a lot of stuff at the editor these days, but it would be nice for someone to sit down and be like, hey, this is what I got. Here's a guide on how to like do shit well.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that. It would be good to update the SPNatI docs repository with a lot of the information that's kind of spread around on the subreddit.
Yeah, like we always... Let me start off first by saying I don't, other than maybe the Masquerade, I don't feel like there's ever been any kind of like collective effort or collective thing that galvanized a whole bunch of new developers. This is a bit of a weird question to me. It's always felt very scattershot, and we just hope that new people join, and they pretty much always have, to some extent. I feel like ultimately the only way a project is going to get off the ground is someone finds this game and really likes a character enough to make them, you know?
Yeah, I'm talking about like how we as developers find success in giving more people, giving them props to keep them engaged, right? Because it's like,
I feel like developers do a good job of being friendly when people join and being helpful, but a lot of the things that we end up saying to them are we're kind of repeating ourselves. It's really just the same advice over and over. Pretty much everyone makes like the same mistake with Kisake and stuff. And when they first start writing dialogue, you kind of see the same sort of thing. Part of that comes with experience and practice, but I think part of it is, a lot of our guide documents really are just completely out of date. People get confused. The development stuff that you find on the subreddit is so old.
Yeah.
Like when I found it, it was pretty recent. We were on like character editor version 1.14. And like, I didn't even tell anyone I was working on a character, but all that, I managed to figure it out for the most part because of all the character editor like help HTMLs. And that was just super helpful. And that was why I was able to finish it, because I knew I was on the right track. So just having that really detailed documentation is really what we need. Like, we really need some documents that are just like, hey, here's how to write stuff. Here's some general style guide. Here's what not to write. Here's how to approach things. When you open up Kisake, here's what it's going to look like, and go step by step. Turn expert mode on. Don't make your character's fucking head huge. Use hair bats. Don't make their legs longer. Shit like that.
Yeah, speaking of the character editor, another thing I was thinking of is that the placeholder lines could be changed to better reflect the actual kind of dialogue you want to put in there.
That's true.
Because a lot of times the placeholders just say, this is what the character says when they have a battle. When another character is taking up a minor item. It's like,
yeah, it sort of encourages that literalism that's stating the obvious.
Yeah, it encourages people to talk about the socks.
That's an interesting like thought. I think there's merit to that.
I don't know if SPNatI Edit listens to these. He's not around all the time, but you should probably ping him about that.
The other thing I was thinking about is, as mentioned regarding Kisake stuff, I almost wondered if, like, maybe is it a bit intimidating to try to get people to get it like exactly perfect on their first go, or should we just accept that people are probably going to have to do an art rework of their character when they're on testing, and just sort of accept that the first pass will probably be kind of the second pass will be much better.
People are so often very they're not confident about their artistic skills. So many people say, I can't do any art at all. I have no artistic skills. So it's probably good to give them a little bit of positive reinforcement at the start.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I just want a guide to tell them how to do basic shit that they should not get wrong the first time, like default face, or completely static posing.
I mean, my own personal, because I ended up having to completely redo the model and posing for Miko when she was on testing, because I didn't get any feedback for her before I did her model and posing. So because of that, it just wasn't any good. And so that's why, like, I think it's better to avoid having to do an art rework. So like whenever I see people posting stuff on the subreddit, I usually try and get them to join the Discord to get better feedback. And so I'd definitely say try and have it so that they have a good model when they're finally put on testing, because it's kind of a pain to do all that art and posing and then have to go back and redo it. That's never fun. It wasn't fun for me when I had to do it. So that's why that would be my advice, would be to try and have them get the model right so that there's less, they don't have to go back and redo their work.
It can be intimidating to be linked to a medium like Discord, though, which is very fast paced, and it can easily feel like you're being ignored. And then go on there and say, hey, I'm working on this character. Can I get feedback? I feel like it'd be nice to have like just some FAQs, some basic guides to link them to. I mean, that's what I would have preferred when I was starting out.
Yeah, I totally agree there.
Yeah, more shit like that. Like that is a really good. That's kind of what we need more of.
Plus, you're not really going to get any good feedback from the subreddit. Sorry.
I mean, Thursday's posing guide's really, really good. It just kind of gets lost in the flow.
Yeah, like aside from that, for new creators, I think, always, you always want to offer help and feedback to new devs, because we were all there once, like not knowing what the hell to do. So that's probably the best thing we can really give them, just the promise that, okay, yeah, you're not going to come in knowing immediately how to do proper writing and art. Nobody really is. But we can at least offer help every step of the way and get you in a place where you can do the sort of proper work that you want. And then I think the other incentive that I think is really good for new developers is to give them the opportunity to write lines to their favorite characters and then have those characters respond back.
Definitely.
Again, this is going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of like sometimes characters get abandoned and that is what it is. But I do think that one of our strengths, as a community and on the developer end, is basically getting to work with other people to bounce ideas and interactions back and forth. Because it's like I had to do it with Saki and Miko, and it's kind of boring just writing both sides of every interaction yourself. I had a lot more fun for Saki, writing the targets to Sakura and Streaming Chan than I did writing the targets to Miko, just because I could look forward to seeing what Napsu had to say back. And it's also because often like people come here talking about how like they really like one character or another. Like for me, I said Monica's the reason I joined. Again, it's not always feasible, but it's nice to it's nice to say like, hey, your character will be able to interact with the ones you like. So like if some guy joins and he likes Saki Nikaido, I can promise that, hey, I'll definitely get to targeting you, but probably 3 weeks late because I'm slow.
I think that's a good caveat. Yeah.
I absolutely like writing both sides of an interaction.
Right.
I wish I did more of it. But I'm the kind of guy that just wants complete control over everything creatively. I am a George Lucas. One day I will create all of my projects into the fucking ground. And then I'll sell it for $4 billion. I mean, that's what he did. He just made his Hidden Fortress fanfic in space.
I wish I could make $4 billion writing my fanfic.
And look at him now. He's eating his food court salads in wherever he lives in California.
Yeah.
Well, it's currently on fire.
God, that's... Oh, no. Don't ever live in California. California is a hellhole.
Don't worry, I won't.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess like the last two questions are, I think, what are some improvements and additions should be part of post-sponsorship updates? I actually think we covered this pretty deeply in like when is a character complete or how to future-proof. But if anyone has like strong feelings about this, I think like let's touch on this. But I do think the last question is a really, really fertile one. So Cavendish, we'll rotate around as usual. Do you have any kind of post-sponsorship things you like to see with characters besides like the kind of typical write more targeted lines, idiot kind of thing?
Well, I'd suggest if they don't already have an epilogue, write one.
Yeah.
I also think for certain characters, alt skins are good. There's some that require perennial alt skins, like how Weiss has has their various different costumes from the different volumes.
Yeah.
But also having like a Halloween outfit or a Christmas outfit or a summer outfit, that's always fun. It helps you boost your character's play stats during those seasons when the special event happens.
Agreed.
I also would argue that you can never really have enough generics. So if you think of some more good stuff that your character could say, put it in. Why not? Yes. I also, of course, target more characters, and especially ones who are on testing or have active writers. I think testing is really important too because it sort of encourages people to keep going. Really, it's sort of like welcoming. Like, well, you put your character on testing, and immediately people are taking the time to write lines to them. And as I mentioned before, I think like joint poses and other kind of gimmicks like that are fun. I don't really know what else you would add.
I have a feeling that people will see one of those very soon. So, yeah, Solitaire, SPNatI, I don't have anything really to add, so I'll let you both take the floor.
Really, in my view, all you really need are targeting updates. For with Saki, my goal was once she was off sponsorship, all I would need to do is focus on targeting updates. Like, if you want to put in an epilogue, that's always good. But for me, just target more.
I mean, I think you're talking a lot of sense.
Keep targeting my characters. Respond to Miko's targets. Misty Knight, if you're listening.
Especially the airing of grievances against Misty Knight.
You should have, you should help her find more of those Byarukin balls? Is that what they're called?
The occult balls?
Occult balls. Byarukin is a character.
No, Byakurin is Miko's rival.
Byakurin.
She's a Buddhist nun.
And she said that she could find some balls?
Yeah.
So help her out.
Yeah, exactly. Someone should make Byakurin for SPNatI.
What poster? What's she look like?
I've got a model.
Is she also 1,400 years old?
Close to it, yeah. Maybe not 1,400, but like 1,000-ish.
Spring chicken.
I had Halo make me a model for the, what's it called? The Secret Santa.
I mean, I would just say, epilogues. Targets are great, but generics and epilogues are sort of the things, the things that are most visible in every game. Targets, unless they're with somebody specific, those, you only get so much mileage out of those compared to the time you put in. I feel like people, most devs sort of like expect more from themselves in terms of like an epilogue than what a player really does. Like, it doesn't have to be the most amazing thing ever. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute One Piece episode like Metal Guitar made with Nami. You just put together some kind of like basic setup and sex scene, and it'll work for.
Yeah,
it'll cap off the project.
I think so.
And it's just a very nice final gesture if you had to make one.
I posted a picture of Byakurin.
So she's a Buddhist, is she?
Yeah, she's a Buddhist nun. She runs a temple.
She's free from all desires?
Pretty much, yeah. I'll post a picture of the model Halo made.
Does she not desire balls?
She's not supposed to. You could probably write her like Lara Shell. Just that sort of dynamic. She's the holier than thou holy woman.
That sounds good.
Namasp, you know what you have to do.
Well, maybe. I don't think I'm doing very much after my current projects are done.
First, you have to get into Toho.
The more I try to, the less I understand about it. It's fucking like Lovecraftian and indecipherable. I understand more about actual H.P. Lovecraft lore than I do about Tuhu.
Well, the problem is that you play the game and it's just the whole screen's filled with bullets and you can't tell what's going on.
There's not much lore in the games anyway. It's usually just Reimu going around and beating people up until the incident is solved.
I also mix Fate and Tuhu up, so it's really it's all weeb stuff.
I mean, what if you were playing Super Mario Brothers and there was just like explosions and shit all over the screen constantly?
It'd be cool.
Couldn't tell what a Goomba was.
All right, so
that's all I had to say.
Let's go ahead and close out our cast. We are coming up on time, and I think we have a nice juicy.
Yeah, just about 2 hours. Another sleepy cast.
2 hours is good. We have a juicy closing remark. So, what makes for a good character to choose for SPNatI? We do have we can go on a little bit at length of this, but let's try and keep it tight. So, Cavendish, what do you think makes it, besides the characters you've picked, what do you consider to be a good holistic choice for bringing into the game?
Is she hot?
Is that it?
Yeah, I'd say is the character attractive, and are you passionate enough to write them and spend a lot of time making them?
Being hot is important. I would at least add, I mean, they talk so much that it's like, do they have anything to say for themselves? Or are they just a complete blank slate?
Oh, I'm sort of kidding there. There's some things to consider. It's like, one, how much lore does their source have? Because if you're working from a source that has a lot of lore, that can make it a lot easier to write dialogue.
Even if they've like some kind of gimmicky personality niche, if you could somehow make that sexualized, just like anything, is there anything to their personality?
Yeah, that's the other thing I was saying is, people probably wouldn't want to make the character unless there's something interesting about them. So you have to ask yourself, is what makes this character interesting going to be conveyed in the context of the game, or is it just something that's sort of in the context of their source, they're interesting, but outside of that, it's sort of difficult to make them interesting? I think that's the question you want to ask yourself.
That makes sense.
Because, like, say, some characters from like a thriller might be really interesting because of how they act under pressure, but they're not really. So can you convey that in the game? Or a character might have really interesting philosophy. How will you convey that in the game? I don't know. You sort of have to really consider like what makes this character appealing, and can you make that work through dialogue?
Yeah, you have to consider like how would they talk in like a casual environment with strangers,
Right?
Which I feel, funnily enough, is probably why I've had so much like voice capturing trouble with like Maya and Jura in particular, and somewhat Revi too, but like they don't really hang out with strangers a lot in like casual situations. So I don't really know how they would treat them. So you have to kind of feel that out.
Yeah. I think I think for me my answer is really small. It's basically like, is this a character that you as a writer can portray in an interesting way in, you know, sexual situations? I think people that are just like too ooh, I am a pure snowflake are. You can have a couple of those in a game like this, but too many and it gets kind of uncomfortable. At the same time, it's like not everyone needs to be like endlessly thirsty. So something that like, if you like the character and you can portray them well, like with a, you know, a personality and a sexuality, and they look interesting, I think you can do a lot with that.
You know who's really smuggy, wuggy, ooh, 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 ooh,
Mm.
is Deimos.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I actually have a lot to talk about with this, which
Solitaire,
is
zoom in on this face.
why. All right. Are you talking to me, Solitaire, or are you talking to Editor Solitaire?
Editor Solitaire, just,
That's,
you know,
that's an important distinction.
as we're talking, zoom in on this face.
All right, I'll let him know. But yeah, one of the reasons I suggested this was because I actually have a lot of opinions on this. So I think there are some things you definitely want to worry about when choosing a character. And the first one is this a character that I like enough that I want to write them? Because otherwise, nothing else will matter. It's gonna take you long enough to make a character, to see them through to completion, that you're gonna want to like them enough to put in the effort and stick with them through the long haul. And then after that, you have to follow the rules, but those are easy to follow. No kids, no real people, no non-con. You really shouldn't be having trouble with those.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, I think, would be, can you make them sexy? Like, I'm not the cum police. What do you like? Because there's plenty of characters in the game that I don't want to have sex with, like Natsuki. But if there's still, you know, even if it's a small like group, then I'd say go for it. But like if even you aren't attracted to the character, then I'd say, you know, why even bother?
Yeah.
Saki is going to fight, say, for being the cum police.
Is Saki full on fuck the police?
Yeah.
Coming straight from Tokyo?
Yeah. She tries to fight a cop in one of the episodes in Zombieland Saga.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
She has to be pulled away by her idol franchise mates.
I hope that sequel series comes out soon, and then like it inspires me to write Junko, because I just.
Yeah.
But I think like honestly, after this last run, I think I'm. It's time for me to retire.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, I know. Just one more hit of the SPNatI pipe.
I think maybe the biggest one that like even experienced creators sometimes don't understand, but I think is a very important question when choosing a character is, can you show off what you like about this character through the mechanics of SPNatI?
I mean, if what you like about them is their tits and hips, then absolutely.
Well, because because the game is entirely based around dialogue and character interactions, you need to be able to use those to show off what you like about the character. So like there's a few characters that I've considered, but like I simply don't think they would work within the constraints of the game. The first sort of case study here would be Miho Nishizumi from Girls in Panzer. So she's basically this badass tank commander with ultra instinct battle moves.
Lol.
But without any way to show that, she just comes off as like another moe schoolgirl. The appeal of the character is sort of how she's the cute schoolgirl who drives around in a tank with, German efficiency. But without showing that, there's nothing really to separate her from any of the other moe blob schoolgirl characters. And the other one, who's one of my earliest waifus, would be Yuki Nakato from Haruhi Suzumiya. And so she's this badass alien computer god who can hack anything and gets in like a huge fight with another badass alien computer god, and she gets stabbed like 15 times.
Oh, you should totally edit these girls in.
Yeah, I will. I'll leave a note. Mr. Solitaire, if you're listening, please edit in these girls. Thank you, you handsome bastard. But the problem with Yuki is that she literally doesn't speak at all, besides like very specific times where she's asked a specific question, and even then sometimes she doesn't. So like she's like the logical extreme of a Rei clone. She's completely taciturn. She wouldn't really be able to do that whole interaction part of SPNatI, which kind of cramps her style a bit. And I think there's also some smaller things you need to think of when choosing a character. For instance, can you get their voice right? But I also think voice is mostly a matter of practice. I did wait. I didn't make Reimu off the bat first because I knew I'd have an easier time capturing the voice of Miko. Like I purposely chose Miko as my first character because it was a character I really liked, and it was somebody whose voice I could capture. But now I think I'm advanced enough that I can capture Reimu's voice and make her good in SPNatI.
That's why I picked Pyrrha as well. I could capture her voice.
I think you're doing a good job.
She says sorry, so you as a Canadian know what it's like to be like that.
You're absolutely correct.
Hey man, don't dox him as being Canadian.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
There's like 5 people in Canada.
Yeah, I'll edit this out of the podcast. It'll be fine.
Oh, Canada, our bare and empty land.
I think another smaller thing is it's nice to capture a fresh niche, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Like, it doesn't need to be your primary factor. It could be like a tiebreaker if, there's like 2 characters you want to do equally and one has its own sort of niche. That could be a tiebreaker, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. And then there's other things that I think you just shouldn't worry about at all when choosing a character. The first one is don't worry about whether it'll be popular.
Definitely.
Because I feel like that's largely decided, like when you pick a character, like that character, if the character is already popular. So I feel like that sort of thing is mostly out of your hands as a creator. And probably even then, like it's difficult to predict in advance which characters the casual fan will jump on versus others. But that might just be because I'm an old boomer and I have no idea what the kids today want to fuck. So, oh well. And then the other one is feasibility in Kisekai, because like Joe made a car, so like you can't really say you can't make something in Kisekai. You can make it in Kisekai. We have talented artists who can guide you. Like, yeah, you can make anything with ribbons or image attachments. Really, it all comes down to how much time you want to sink in. But if you want to make a character, yeah, don't let the art stop you. I think writing is going to be is the thing that's really going to determine whether you want to sink the time into the character. And that'll be the most time consuming too. Like even for me, who likes fiddling around with art until oblivion. But yeah, that's everything I have. We're probably over time, but that'll be a problem for future Solitaire.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like really comprehensive. I think that was a good one to go on. SPNatI, do you want to send us off? I think like Solitaires was really great, but don't let me interrupt you.
Good. It was relaxing.
Yeah, it was.
With your cadence.
Is that a good thing?
You should narrate like penguins marching across the tundra.
All right.
At a moderate pace. But I mean, there are a couple facets to this. I think the first thing is a couple podcasts ago, I talked about how despite being somewhat obscure, Maya and Jura are pretty decent character choices for the game, and that's mostly because they are sex-oriented. They have things about sex to talk about. They are interested in that in a unique way, which gives them a niche. So they'll always have that at least. So you should definitely look for that if you can. It's not a requirement. It can just be you like a character, but if they can bring a unique take on sexuality, some kind of niche, some kind of fetish, or just a different approach to one of those things that's already represented, that can go a long way. I mean, in terms of who you like, it's really just a matter of I've compared. If you play this game, you probably masturbate to other fictional characters at some point. So I'm sure you're familiar with it. But doing that, browsing around for that, is sort of like a one-night stand, you know?
Yeah.
And even doing their art, for instance, you can do that relatively quickly and pose them, in the space of a few days.
Not me.
And you're really excited, and you're almost infatuated with them. It's the throes of passion, and I think a lot of characters kind of burn out on the writing, because writing a character and updating them and revising their posing, going back, that's not a romantic fling. That's being married.
Oh.
That's sitting down every day with them and saying, I still love this character. I'm going to make them better. Let's work through this. So you got to like a character enough that you have to be married to them for a while. Not forever. You can drop a character, but for a decent amount of time, you have to be married to them. So you got to ask yourself, can you do that? Do you want to marry Diva, or do you just want to fuck her?
I think we all know the answer to that question. I can say in my heart, I know the answer to that question.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Married Man.
Well, anyway.
But that's my point, is can you sit down with a character every day? Like, imagine if like no other Rule 34 existed, and it was just this character. Like, would you be okay with that? At least for like a couple months. Would you be willing to like rewatch their series or like replay their game and kind of take notes on their dialogue? Or would that bore you?
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Again, it's not a lifetime commitment, but it is a fairly big time commitment. So you want to make sure you make a good one. Is there a character like that for you? And the reason I haven't made too many characters is just because there's not too many characters that are like that for me. And Maya is one of them.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Like,
Does sitting down every day and writing for them excite you? Sorry, you were saying?
yeah, no, I definitely get you on that. Like if there's like a spectrum on sort of character upkeep, where on one end you've got, the hypothetical guy that makes, 4 characters and updates them all to have 10,000 lines. And then the hypothetical other guy that makes 12 characters and dumps any that don't perform well enough in the resource with hyper capitalist efficiency.
Well, this is all hypothetical.
Then I'm definitely closer to SPNatI's end of the spectrum, where there's like 4 characters I definitely want to make. Maybe, 1 or 2 more if they end up falling into my lap, or if I decide I'm interested enough in writing them. But I don't think I want to make too many characters, just because I don't think there's that many characters that I want to spend all that effort on. And also a little bit is I think that I'd feel a little bit guilty if I did drop a character. Like if I dropped Saki. I know there's a ton of people that really like Saki, and I really like her too. So I'd feel bad if I just said like, okay, that's it. I'm done with updating Saki. Deal with it. But that's just me.
For me, I have a lot of characters I'd like to see in the game, but not there's not too many that I'm 100% sure I could do justice.
Yeah.
So I just sort of try to pick the ones that I could probably write them, and other ones I just like, I hope someone picks these up. But at some point you kind of have to say like, well, if no one else is going to do it, then I'll do it. At least for ones you really want to see. But in some cases someone will take it up. Like I was considering making Kurisu Makaze from Steins Gate my 3rd character, but someone else is doing that proxy, so.
Isn't that the girl that Joe really wanted?
Yep.
In the masquerade?
I think so.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, there was like a lot of like Joe cock teasing that happened there.
And I think that was Viz. Team, obviously Viz.
Yeah. Team definitely Viz.
Yeah.
All right, is that it? Does that conclude?
I
45?
think we can conclude our podcast. As ever, Solitaire, thanks for all your hard work editing.
Yeah, I'm
SPNatI, always good to be on with you. Cavendish, you're a rat bastard for making me eat this fucking boiled pizza, but, way to rise to the occasion. Mad respect for you. Great to have you on the cast.
Yeah.
And, thank you all for your time. Thanks for listening, loyal viewers. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, just send them over to the Discord. We're happy to justify ourselves, or you can call us an idiot and come on the cast next time.
Now that we're on the Backmatter, should we actually talk about Yunyun?
Who?
All right, that's fair.
I actually haven't, since she only just got off of QA, I haven't actually played her since.
I do feel a little bad.
Yeah, sponsorship. I did sponsor her, though, and all of my sponsorships were fulfilled, so that must mean she's good.
Well, I said I sponsored her as well, and the main thing I said is just she could use some more generics in these cases, and she got them, so I'm happy.
All right, I believe.
I think if we're gonna unironically, I think if we're gonna address Yunyun, basically, I don't really have a lot to say. I think I've come around on Yunyun as a character, but I think Yunyun is kind of a discussion of what we were just talking about with respect to you got to be married to the project for a little while. And I think the people who embarked to make Yunyun did a really good first pass, but then petered out. And I think stubbornness got her onto the main tables more so than love.
No one wants to marry Yunyun.
Whereas even a character made out of spite, kind of, they can be good.
Well, you would know about that.
Yeah, but I think Yuri, Yunyun, it's late, would be
The Masp at 7 p.m.
I know, I'm so tired. But Yunyun,
not for me, fuckers.
Yeah, well, come to the best coast. Don't. It's on fire.
Come to the Beast Coast.
We just use the fire to keep all the weirdos on the eastern seaboard out.
Dude, have you been to San Francisco? It's not. Anyway, so
will just say that I think Yunyun is in good shape. I think she's certainly roster ready. I do think that it would be a good exercise to revisit her when people are feeling more engaged with writing her character and with some more substance. I think what's nice though is it's not like this is like Megumin or Aqua or Darkness or a character that people are like mega thirsty for and would be really disappointed if they didn't receive updates like, Starfire. But I think Yunyun's in a good spot. It would just be great to see her, get that, last level of polish. But at the same time spent working on Yunyun is not time spent working on other Napsu projects, so I am okay letting that one go.
Masp only cares about Amy.
I love Amy.
Yunyun's another example of just a character where I wish I targeted her more before her authors just kind of pieced out.
Yeah, same. I had an idea for interaction with Pyrrha, but now I guess that's just going to have to wait.
You got to be quick. You got to be quick to the trigger.
I forced Napsu to respond to my targets as part of my sponsorship requirement.
Our
That's
move.
true. Always use that as leverage.
Yeah, it's like I noticed that you haven't responded. Per my last email, you haven't responded to my targeted lines. Please rectify this immediately. Okay, thanks.
That's real 300 IQ ideas.
All right. So does that conclude things?
Yeah, I'm good to end there. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. And we actually did address Yunyun, so topics are completed.
All right. So good episode, everybody.
See you in a few weeks.
Thanks, Cavendish and Solitaire. Thanks to Masp as always.
Yep.
All right. See you guys next time. So ends episode 45, and of course, this November, please vote to end President 45. Thank you very much.